Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I've congratulated you yet, Mr. Secretary, so belated congratulations. Be careful what you ask for, right?
I don't think I asked for this, but I did say yes. So
okay, fair enough.
Little did you know.
Can you tell me where you're at in terms of, I'm intrigued by the idea of consolidating federal wildland fire responsibilities. Can you tell me, will Boise still be kind of the operational center of firefighting under this? And briefly, just where we at on that consolidation? I think I got the impression your consolidation is going to be ready to go this fire season, which is, I don't know, depending on where you are, might be here already, but here shortly.
No, the fire season's here already, and I've been working closely with specifically with Brooke Rollins and USDA on this plan, and I think that the key here is building off the successes we have. You know, the Idaho, where the joint operation right now is the closest thing we have to coordination, but we still end up in situations that are where resource allocation is affecting our ability to fight fires. I had personal experience of this last October. We had a wildland fire in North Dakota. It was happening not completely overlap, but not long after the LA fires at 124,000 acres. That's bigger than all the LA fires. No one ever heard about it. We lost 2 lives. We had a couple of ranchers trying to protect livestock that got caught in the raging speed of a overland prairie wildfire. Very tragic. We knew that it was a high fire risk season. We had our state resources, including our National Guard on call, in position, ready to go. Black Hawk helicopters with the ability to do drop buckets out trying to protect folks. This started on middle of the night on a Friday night, and Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Myself and the state of North Dakota was calling for federal air support, and they arrived on Tuesday. We'd been called on Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, Monday afternoon, Tuesday. That entire time, I'm fully understand, because now Senator Tim Sheehy, who is running a contract business, flying aircraft, had aircraft sitting on the ground in Montana, a short distance away, and there was never a decision made to distribute aircraft for this thing, and where it was, the adjacency of the fire to Lake Sakakawea, the fact that it was in these tough Badlands canyons that you couldn't get out with fire crews. They came in with their scoopers, they're loading up a plane in 11 seconds, skimming along the surface, 6 tons of water, and they had this fire out in 4 hours. And so it was a dramatic example of how a little better coordination of releasing resources and making decisions could get us there. And I think that so we're moving ahead with that, and I would expect that you'll hear from ahead of any legislation. You'll hear a joint announcement from Brooke Rollins and myself soon about how we're trying to implement greater coordination in this fire season.
Great. And we'll be getting back with you in terms of who's the point in your office just for monitoring that sort of stuff, but it sounds like you've got a good feel for it.
Well, we got to start. I mean, we given that this is moving one responsibility from a department to another, and you're in a position here oversee with both, we'd want to work closely with this committee to make sure that we get all of the the appropriations, everything figured out. But we think this is one of these things where if we can make better decisions faster, and we can save money with better systems on decision making using all the current tools. I know that former Secretary and Congressman Zinke is coming from Montana, also knows that there is tools that were available to him as a Navy SEAL 20 years ago that we're not using to protect firefighters on the ground right now. So we've got to make sure we equipped everybody with the right tools, give them the right command structure, and then put more firefighters on the front line and less people trying to make manual decisions about where to allocate resources.
I appreciate that. Now, I want to move the focus to personnel, or that's an old term, HR, whatever the new term is. There are a few areas that affect operations, and I think we touched. when you talk about getting an appraisal for any kind of federal land, that means you've killed the idea. And I don't mean that disparagingly. I'm just saying, well, we've only got, you know, this many certified appraisers, and 3 of them are on death's door, and the 2 that are left are scheduled until, you know, sometime in the next century or something like that. And so that's an issue that has been around for a long time. I bring that up. Certified minerals examiners, same thing. And then I also bring it up in the most recent stuff, where when you look at the mission of Interior, especially in the West, where so much of the ground is yours, and you talk about just administering that in an everyday sense, whether it's, you know, range people or real estate people or anything. So when the last round of cuts comes, at least in the parts that I pay attention to, your state and district offices were already significantly below whatever. Now, I'm not saying whatever is unassailable. It's like, listen, if there are positions being carried that can't be, you know, justified, then quit carrying them. But when you put those cuts on top of a bunch of vacancies, which leads us into what they're getting paid and can they afford to live where they're, all that other sort of stuff. And I'll just say, I hope that that becomes something that we, and we've mentioned it to secretaries long before you, and it's tough, and I get that, but I think this is an opportunity, and I think we've seen it so far, for a refocus on the mission of Interior nationwide, where it's like, hey, they're going to need a little more support than, oh yeah, them too. So I say that whether you're talking about Native issues or whatever, where it's like, I think this committee has always been, so you've got some support there in terms of going, you want us to operate efficiently, good. You want us to but we also need the ability to operate. And those are just a few of the areas where it's like, I don't know how you can sit there and hold somebody's feet to the fire when there's a whole bunch of empty desks.
Well, I got this sort of hits on across. You mentioned you know, BLM is one of the key things where appraisals that are occurring, but you know, the high level thing, what we're trying to accomplish in terms of a strategic restructuring would be to get you know, more people on the front lines. I mean, more rangers in the park, more you know, biologists on the rangeland, more people doing appraisals on these, whether you know, mining or whether it's you know, Southern Nevada Lands Act. Transfers, and I think that there's a big opportunity to do that as we get our hands on the layers. I mean, BLM, for example, they have field offices, they have district offices, they have regional offices, they have state offices, and then there's a federal office. And I don't know any, you know, corporation today that's in any business, but even if you were in the timber management business, or if you're in the raising business, you know, you wouldn't have 5 layers between you know, headquarters and the front lines. I mean, with today's systems, you might have 3, but you wouldn't have 5. So whatever we're doing to try to streamline, we're at the end of the day, we want to end up with more people, more minutes on mission, as you say, more people that are out there getting it done. And then in some cases, we just have to change the administrative rules. I mean, I was with you in Nevada last week. I guess it was Friday. We were there Friday afternoon, meeting with the governor and with Secretary Turner from HUD. And the Southern Nevada Lands Act has been around since Harry Reid was in office, and it's, you know, very structured process for how we move BLM land into other uses in Southern Nevada. And one of those uses is affordable housing. And so we were at a project. After our meeting with the roundtable with all the local, we went out to that 18 acres. In the administrative rules, it's being transferred to you know, the city of Henderson for a 390 unit, $120 million affordable, you know, housing project at $100 an acre. I mean, this is a huge you know, benefit for that project. And then Representative, I said, well, how fast can they get going? They said, well, we're waiting for the appraisal. And I said, it says in administrative rules it's $100. It's not going to change. It's $100 an acre. They said, yes, but we're still required to do an appraisal. And I'm like, why are we required to do an appraisal? Well, because that's also in these rules. So then we have conflicting rules. And then I said, well, how long does the appraisal take? They said, well, it could take longer than 6 months, but that's a problem, because if it's longer than 6 months, then it's outdated and we have to start over again. It trips this continuous thing. And, you know, these are the things that you know, coming from the private sector, I'm just like, I get motivated when I hear these things, because I'm like, we just have to get rid of all of this. This is, this creates more work for the people on the front lines, and we get less things done. And in the end of the day, what we did in North Dakota, we cut, when I took office, we were having a huge revenue crisis because of the having a revenue drop. We had to cut $1.7 billion out of a $6 billion general fund in a little state like North Dakota. $1.7 billion in my first 4 months, coming from the private sector. All the trains still ran on time. That's just 27% cut. And we did that. And part of it is we got rid of the things that were getting in the way of the team members doing the jobs that they wanted to do. People go into government because they want to make a difference. They don't go into government because they want to push paper and use 50-year-old IT systems. So anyway, there's a way to end up with more meaningful, purposeful, effective jobs and reduce costs, because I've done it. I mean, I know that's true, but in this case, you're spot on, Representative, in terms of the around the appraisals and around the need for making sure. And I would say, you mentioned, Winnemucca, Elko, all these communities where it's hard to staff. Those guys are the lifeblood of our agencies, the people that are working in these remote areas, and we need more of them. And we need, frankly, we need less people in Washington D.C. But the people in Washington D.C., when I walked into that building that holds 4,000 people, there was nobody there. I mean, so it's like they're all working remotely, but they weren't working remotely from Elko, right? And so it's like, we want to get people out, out on the ground doing the job that serves, the timber industry, the grazing industry, the mining industry, the recreation industry, the wildlife, outdoors, fish and game industries. I mean, outdoor recreation is a $1.2 trillion industry. We're serving them too. So there's big opportunity for us to cut overhead and get more people on the ground.
Thank you, sir. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Harder.